Every great speaker you've ever admired, whether it was a politician who moved millions, a teacher who inspired you, or a friend who captivated a room with a story, had something in common. They weren't simply speaking words. They were using their body, their voice, and their emotions as instruments to create impact. Yet here's a secret most people don't realize. Confidence is not something you're born with. It's not a magical gift reserved for charismatic leaders or extroverts. Confidence is built. It's a skill, a formula, and anyone willing to learn the right methods can apply it. Think for a moment about the last time you had to speak in front of people. Maybe it was at work, presenting your ideas. Maybe it was standing up at a family gathering, giving a toast. Or maybe it was something as small as introducing yourself in a room full of strangers. Did you feel your heart racing, your palms sweating, your words stumbling? Did you catch yourself saying, too often, rushing your sentences, or forgetting what you meant to say? You're not alone. Public speaking consistently ranks among the world's greatest fears, sometimes even higher than death. That's how deeply rooted this anxiety is. But here's the twist. Behind that fear lies an opportunity. If you can learn to master the way you present yourself, your posture, your tone, your energy, you unlock not just the ability to speak, but the power to influence, persuade, and inspire. This book is about that formula. It's simple but powerful: body, voice, emotions. Think of them as three pillars holding up your confidence. Without one, the structure wobbles. But when they work together, they create a speaker who commands attention, not because of tricks or gimmicks, but because their presence feels authentic and undeniable. Over the next chapters, I'll guide you through 17 practical techniques, tools you can apply immediately. Some will sharpen your body language. Others will unlock the richness of your voice. And still others will help you channel your emotions so your words land with real impact. These aren't abstract theories. They're practices drawn from actors, leaders, teachers, and everyday people who learn to turn fear into confidence. Here's the promise. If you stay with me through this book, you'll finish not just with more knowledge, but with a transformed perspective. You'll know how to walk into any room, step onto any stage, or start any conversation with a quiet certainty. I can do this. People will listen to me. I have control. And along the way, I'll share stories, moments when things went wrong, moments when I learned the hard way, and moments when others use these techniques to change their lives. Because here's the truth. This isn't just about public speaking. The formula of a confident speaker spills into every area of life. Your career, your relationships, even the way you talk to yourself. Brought to you by Audiobooks Hub, your source for stories that inspire. And now we start. Chapter 1. The first technique is simple on the surface, yet it forms the foundation of every confident speaker. Owning your body through posture. Picture someone walking onto a stage. Before they say a single word, you can already sense whether they feel sure of themselves or not. Shoulders hunched forward, eyes darting to the floor, hands fidgeting. These are signs of nervousness. But a person who enters upright, shoulders relaxed, chest open, head held high, instantly, they project authority and calm. Your body is a silent speaker. In fact, research shows that nonverbal communication can outweigh the impact of your actual words. Audiences may forget half of what you say, but they will remember how you looked when you said it. And more importantly, your body influences your own emotions. The way you hold yourself can either feed your anxiety or help you channel strength. When I first started speaking in public, I underestimated this truth. I would prepare my words meticulously, rehearse them again and again, and then walk onto the stage like a nervous shadow of myself. My body betrayed me. The trembling hands, the shallow breaths, the tight shoulders. It told the audience, I don't belong here. And so, no matter how carefully I prepared, my message lost its weight. It wasn't until I deliberately trained my posture that things began to shift. Standing tall, grounding my feet, opening my chest, it didn't just change how others saw me, it changed how I felt. Suddenly, instead of wanting to run away, I felt rooted, as though the stage belonged to me. You don't need to become a stiff statue to master this. Confidence is not about freezing yourself into a rigid pose. It's about creating a posture that balances stability with ease. Imagine a tree, strong roots in the ground, but flexible branches moving with the wind. That's the energy you want to radiate. Here's a simple practice. Stand with your feet hip-width apart. Feel the ground under you as though you're connected to it. Roll your shoulders back gently and let them relax, not forced. Lift your chin slightly, enough to show openness but not arrogance. Now take a deep breath, filling your lungs fully, and exhale slowly. Notice how different you feel already. Do this before any speaking situation. Whether you're walking into a meeting, stepping up to the podium, or even answering a difficult question in daily life. Think of it as your reset button. Another layer to posture is eye contact. Confidence is not just in how tall you stand, but in how you connect with others. Looking into people's eyes, calmly, not aggressively, creates trust. It signals that you're present, not hiding. The key is balance. Avoid staring at one person too long, but don't dart around nervously either. Move your gaze naturally, as though you're having a conversation with everyone in the room. Of course, fear will still try to sneak in. Your body will want to shrink when you feel exposed. That's natural. But here's where the formula begins to work. When you train your posture, you're not just acting confident. You're teaching your mind to feel it. Psychologists call this embodied cognition. In other words, your body doesn't just express your feelings, it shapes them. Over time, practicing posture becomes automatic. You'll notice yourself entering rooms differently, standing in conversations differently, carrying yourself differently. And here's the beautiful part. People start treating you differently too. Respect follows presence. Authority follows calm energy. Remember, before your voice is heard, your body speaks. Master posture, and you've already won half the battle. Chapter 2. If posture is a foundation of confidence, then breathing is the engine that powers it. Without proper breath, your voice weakens, your nerves take over, and your presence collapses. The second technique in the formula is mastering your breath to master your calm. Think about the moments you felt nervous before speaking. Your breath probably became shallow, your chest tight, and your words rushed. That's no coincidence. When fear activates your body's fight or flight response, the first thing it steals is your breathing rhythm. Instead of fueling your voice, your breath becomes a liability. But here's the powerful truth. If anxiety can hijack your breathing, then conscious breathing can hijack your anxiety. When you learn to take control of your breath, you take control of your state of mind. I'll never forget one of my earliest presentations. I had practiced endlessly, memorizing every line, but when I stood up to speak, my breath disappeared. My sentences came out broken, clipped, almost gasped. Halfway through, I felt dizzy, lightheaded, not because I didn't know my material, but because I had forgotten to breathe. From that day, I promised myself, never again. I studied how actors, singers, and speakers breathe, And I realized something most of us are never taught. Breath should come from the diaphragm, not the chest. Chest breathing is shallow, feeding panic. Diaphragmatic breathing, on the other hand, gives your body oxygen, slows your heart rate, and strengthens your voice. It anchors you. Here's a practical exercise you can try right now. Place one hand on your chest and the other on your stomach. Take a deep breath. If the hand on your chest rises more than the one on your stomach, you're breathing shallowly. Now try again this time. Focus on letting your stomach expand first. Your chest should rise only slightly, almost as if it's following along. This is diaphragmatic breathing. Practice this for just 2 minutes a day. Lie down if you need to. Close your eyes and count your breaths. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Over time, this rhythm will become second nature. Before speaking, I always take 3 slow breaths like this. Inhale deeply. Hold briefly. Exhale fully. It signals to my body, I'm safe. I'm in control. It quiets the racing thoughts and centers me. It also primes my voice, because breath is a fuel for strong sound. There's another benefit. Controlled breathing regulates your pace. Nervous speakers often rush through their words, afraid of silence. But when you breathe with intention, you create natural pauses. These pauses aren't weaknesses, they're moments of power. They give your audience time to absorb your message and give you time to stay steady. Think about great speakers you admire. Notice how they use silence as much as speech. They're not in a hurry. Their breathing sets the rhythm of their delivery. And because they control their breath, they control the room. Some people worry that this kind of breathing will look forced or unnatural. But the truth is, when you breathe deeply, your body relaxes, your shoulders loosen, your voice grows fuller, your energy steadies. Audiences may not know why, but they'll feel it. Let me share a small story. A colleague of mine, terrified of speaking, used to avoid presentations at all costs. Her voice shook, her sentences stumbled. We practiced nothing else but breathing for a week. Every day, 10 minutes of slow, diaphragmatic breathing. When she gave her next talk, something amazing happened. She wasn't perfect. She still made mistakes, but her calm was unshakable. People told her afterward that she seemed different, more grounded, more credible. The only change was her breath. So here's the rule to carry with you. Before words, there is breath. Before control, there is calm. And before confidence, there is rhythm. Learn to master your breathing, and you'll find that fear loses its grip. You not only sound stronger, but you'll feel stronger. And once you have that, every word you speak rests on solid ground. Chapter 3. Now that we built the foundations of posture and breath, it's time to add the next layer, your voice. The third technique is about finding vocal power without strain. Your voice is more than sound. It's a bridge between your mind and your audience. It carries not just information, but emotion, authority, and presence. A weak, trembling voice can make even the wisest words sound uncertain. A strong, steady voice can make even simple words sound inspiring. Here's the truth most people never realize. A confident voice isn't about speaking loudly. It's about speaking with resonance. Loudness can come across as aggression. Resonance, on the other hand, feels natural, full, and magnetic. It's the kind of voice that fills a room without forcing itself. I once worked with a young professional who had brilliant ideas, but always got overlooked in meetings. She spoke quickly, softly, and high-pitched, so people ignored her, even when her suggestions were gold. We worked together on her voice. slowing her pace, grounding her breath, and lowering her tone slightly. Within a few weeks, the same people who once dismissed her began leaning in when she spoke. Her words hadn't changed, her voice had. To begin developing resonance, you need to connect your voice to your breath. Many people try to push their words from the throat, which creates strain and fatigue. That's why some speakers feel hoarse after just a few minutes. Instead, your voice should ride on the stream of air coming from your diaphragm. Here's a simple exercise. Hum. Yes, just hum. Take a deep breath and hum a note comfortably in your range. You should feel a vibration in your chest, not just in your throat. That vibration is resonance. The more you practice humming, the more you train your voice to vibrate through your chest, giving it depth and power. Another practice is to read aloud daily. Choose a page from a book or even a news article. Read it slowly, emphasizing clarity and tone. Record yourself and listen. Do you sound rushed? Do you fade at the end of sentences? Do you rise in pitch when you're unsure? Awareness is a first step toward mastery. Also, remember this, variation matters. A monotonous voice is the death of attention. Your audience will tune out, no matter how valuable your content. Think of your voice like a musical instrument. You need highs and lows, fast and slow, soft and strong. Variety keeps people engaged. Here's a trick I learned from actors. Mark your script or notes with symbols for pauses, emphasis, or changes in tone. This helps you avoid sounding robotic. For example, underline the word you want to stress. Add a slash where you want to pause. Over time, this becomes second nature, and your speech flows with natural rhythm. And let's not forget the pace. Nervous speakers sprint through their words as if racing to escape judgment. Confident speakers walk. They allow silence. They give space. The pace of your voice reflects the pace of your mind. Slow it down and suddenly you appear composed, even if your heart is pounding inside. One more important point. Your voice doesn't just communicate with others. It communicates with you. When you hear yourself sounding strong and steady, you begin to feel strong and steady. It's a feedback loop of confidence. I want you to imagine for a moment a voice you admire. Maybe it's a speaker, a leader, or even a family member. What makes it memorable? It's probably not perfection, it's presence. Their voice fills the space, and you can't help but pay attention. That's the goal we're moving toward. Remember this principle. Your voice is not just sound, it's atmosphere. It sets the mood of the room. Master your voice, and people won't just hear your words. They'll feel them. Chapter 4. By now, you understand how posture grounds you, breath steadies you, and voice projects you. But there's another element that makes a speaker unforgettable: gesture. The fourth technique is about using your hands and body language intentionally. Think about the most engaging speaker you've ever watched. Chances are they didn't stand stiffly with their arms glued to their sides. They used their hands, their arms, their face, even their whole body to bring their words alive. Gestures are not decoration. They are part of your message. When I first began speaking, I had two problems. Either I froze my hands completely, afraid of looking awkward, or I overused them, waving and fidgeting like I was signaling planes to land. Neither worked. Audiences were distracted, not impressed. It took me time to learn that gestures, when aligned with words, add clarity, emphasis, and emotional depth. Here's the key. Gestures should serve your message, not steal from it. A good gesture is like a highlighter. It draws attention to the right point. A bad gesture is like random scribbling. It confuses the listener. For example, if you're talking about something big, spread your hands apart. If you're emphasizing one crucial point, pinch your fingers together. If you're telling a story with 3 lessons, count them with your fingers as you go. These movements don't just make your speech more visual, they make your ideas more memorable. But gestures are not just about the hands. They involve posture shifts, facial expressions, and even how you move across a stage or room. Think of your body as a canvas that paints meaning. A smile conveys warmth. A raised eyebrow signals curiosity. A step forward creates intensity. A pause with open palms shows vulnerability. Of course, there's a danger of overacting. If gestures are too big or constant, they feel theatrical and distract from your words. The solution is alignment. Your gestures should grow naturally out of what you're saying, not feel forced. The audience should think, of course they move that way. It fits. Here's an exercise to build awareness. Record yourself speaking for 2 minutes. Don't plan any gestures, just talk. Then watch the video. Notice your hands. Are they stiff? Are they repetitive? Do they wander aimlessly? Awareness is uncomfortable at first, but it's the fastest path to improvement. Once you see your habits, practice layering in intentional movements. For example, take a short paragraph of text. Read it aloud while planning 2 or 3 gestures that underline your points. Record again. You'll be surprised at how much more engaging you look and sound. There's also a psychological layer to gestures. They don't just influence the audience, they influence you. Studies show that moving your body in open, expansive ways increases your sense of confidence. Gestures are a physical expression of mental clarity. When you gesture with purpose, your thoughts feel more organized, your delivery feels more fluid, and your confidence grows. I once coached a student who struggled with monotone delivery. His word refined, his posture steady, but his speeches lacked life. I asked him to focus only on gestures, using his hands to map out his points as if he were drawing them in the air. The transformation was immediate. His voice gained energy, his pacing improved, and his audience leaned in. He later told me, "It felt like my ideas were flowing out of me, not stuck in my head." That's the magic of gestures. They free your message. So remember, your hands are not a problem to hide, but a tool to use. Train them to support your words, not compete with them. When your body speaks alongside your voice, your message becomes 3-dimensional. And once your gestures flow with purpose, you'll notice something important. People will not just hear your speech, they'll see it. Chapter 5. Now that your body and gestures are coming alive, it's time to add another powerful element, eye contact. The 5th technique is about connecting with people through your gaze. Your eyes are more than windows to your soul. They are anchors of attention. Long before you say a word, your audience reads your eyes. Do they dart nervously? Do they avoid people altogether? Or do they meet others with warmth, certainty, and presence? I'll never forget the first time I gave a speech to a large audience. I was so afraid of looking people in the eye that I stared just above their heads, hoping no one would notice. They did. Afterwards, someone told me kindly, "You sounded like you were talking to the ceiling." My word refined, but without eye contact, there was no bond. Here's the truth. Audiences don't just listen, they look. And when your eyes meet theirs, even for a moment, they feel included. Eye contact is not about intimidation. It's about connection. The key is balance. Staring at one person too long feels uncomfortable. Avoiding everyone feels distant. The goal is to move your gaze naturally across the room, as if you're having a conversation with many people at once. Here's a simple method. Divide your audience into sections, left, center, right. Speak a few sentences while looking at one section. then smoothly shift to another. In smaller settings, make direct eye contact with individuals, holding it for about 2 to 3 seconds before moving on. This rhythm makes everyone feel acknowledged without putting anyone under spotlight. Eye contact also helps you pace yourself. Nervous speakers often rush, but when you pause to look at someone, you naturally slow down. It gives weight to your words. A short sentence delivered with a steady gaze can have more impact than a long speech delivered with eyes glued to the floor. But what about the fear that people are judging you? That's what makes eye contact so hard. The secret is to flip your perspective. Instead of seeing eyes as critics, see them as allies. Most people in your audience want you to succeed. They're not waiting for you to fail. They're waiting for you to give them something worth listening to. There's another layer here too, emotional transfer. When you look at people with confidence and warmth, they feel it. Your energy passes through your eyes. A smile combined with steady eye contact can melt resistance faster than any argument. On the other hand, avoiding eye contact signals doubt, even if your words are strong. Here's an exercise. Practice in everyday life. The next time you order coffee, hold eye contact with a barista for 2 extra seconds while saying thank you. When you greet a colleague, look into their eyes a little longer than usual. These small moments train you to get comfortable with connection. By the time you're in front of an audience, it won't feel unnatural. It will feel like an extension of who you are. I once worked with a manager who struggled to lead his team. His words were solid, his logic sharp, but his employees never seemed inspired. When I observed him, I noticed he rarely looked anyone in the eye. He was always glancing at notes, screens, or the floor. Once we worked on eye contact, slowly, deliberately, his leadership presence grew. His team began responding, not because he changed his ideas, but because he finally connected. Remember this principle. Eye contact is not about looking at people. It's about seeing them. When your eyes meet theirs, your message stops being a speech and starts becoming a conversation. And that is the essence of confidence, not speaking at people, but speaking with them. Chapter 6. So far, we talk about posture, breath, voice, gestures, and eye contact. Each of these creates presence, but presence without clarity can still fall flat. That brings us to the 6th technique, pausing with purpose. Silence is one of the most underrated tools of confident speaking. Most people fear it. They rush to fill every second with words, afraid that a pause will make them look unsure. Ironically, the opposite is true. Strategic pauses make you look composed, deliberate, and powerful. Think of the last great speech you heard. Chances are it wasn't a constant stream of words. It had rhythm, beats of speech followed by moments of quiet. Those silences weren't mistakes. They were intentional. They gave weight to the words, allowed ideas to sink in, and drew the audience closer. When I first began speaking, I did the opposite. I raced through my sentences, as if the faster I finished, the sooner I could escape judgment. But the faster I spoke, the less people understood me. My words blurred together. I realized later that it wasn't the words I lacked. It was the courage to pause. Here's the secret. Silence communicates confidence. It shows you are in control, not desperate to be heard. It signals that what you just said matters enough to linger in the air, and it builds anticipation for what comes next. There are several kinds of pauses you can use. The emphasis pause. After making a strong point, stop. Let the audience absorb it before moving on. The transition pause. Use a short silence to mark the shift from one idea to the next. The emotional pause. When telling a story, especially a personal one, silence can let the emotion breathe. The dramatic pause. Stop just before delivering a key phrase or punchline. It heightens impact. Practicing pauses may feel awkward at first. That's normal. We live in a world that fears silence, so your instinct will be to rush. The solution is to rehearse deliberately. Take a paragraph of text, read it aloud, and mark where you'll pause. Count silently to 2 before continuing. At first it feels artificial, but soon it becomes natural. Another benefit of pausing is that it helps you control filler words. Like, and creeping when your brain is racing ahead of your mouth. A pause gives your mind time to catch up, eliminating the need for those verbal crutches. Suddenly, you sound sharper, clearer, more credible. I remember coaching a young entrepreneur preparing for a pitch. Her content was solid, but she spoke nonstop, leaving no room for investors to process. We worked on inserting pauses. After each benefit, after each story, before her final ask. The result? The same pitch, but transformed. The investors leaned forward, hooked. They had space to think, and they began nodding along. She walked away with funding, not because her idea was new, but because her delivery finally gave it weight. Here's something to reflect on. In music, silence is as important as sound. Without rest, notes lose shape. The same is true for speaking. Pauses create rhythm. Rhythm creates meaning. So the next time you speak, resist the urge to rush. Embrace the silence. Hold it. Let the room breathe with you, because in that moment of quiet, your confidence is louder than words. Chapter 7. If pausing gives your words power, then storytelling gives them life. The 7th technique is about using stories to capture hearts and minds. Human beings are wired for stories. Long before we had books, microphones, or PowerPoint slides, we shared knowledge around fires through tales. Stories are how we make sense of the world. They trigger emotions, and emotions anchor memory. Facts inform, but stories transform. When I first began giving presentations, I filled them with data, logic, and bullet points. I thought the more information I gave, the more persuasive I'd be. Instead, people looked at me politely, nodded occasionally, and then forgot everything the moment they walked away. It wasn't until I started weaving in stories that things changed. Suddenly, people leaned forward. They smiled, they laughed, they even repeated my words days later, not because of the numbers, but because of the narrative behind them. A good story doesn't have to be long or dramatic. It just needs 3 parts: a situation, a challenge, and a resolution. For example, I once froze during a presentation. My voice shook, my hands trembled, and I wanted to disappear. But then I discovered a simple breathing exercise, and it changed everything. Short, clear, and relatable. Here's why stories are so effective. They make you human. When you share a personal struggle or lesson, you stop being just a speaker. You become relatable. Audiences connect with people, not perfection. They create emotion. Data appeals to the mind. Stories appeal to the heart. And when the heart is engaged, the mind follows. They are memorable. You may forget a statistic tomorrow, but you'll remember a story years later. Of course, stories should serve your message, not distract from it. A common mistake is telling a long, entertaining tale that has no clear connection to your point. That's not storytelling. That's rambling. The rule is simple. Every story should either illustrate your idea, prove your point, or inspire your audience. Another key is detail. The right detail makes a story vivid. Instead of saying, "I was nervous before my talk," you might say, "My palms were sweating so badly I couldn't hold my notes without smudging the ink." That little image pulls listeners into the moment with you. You also don't always need your own stories. You can use examples from history, current events, or even someone else's experience, as long as you frame it with meaning. For instance, Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech is remembered not because of his policy proposals, but because of the dream he painted with words. That was a story, not just a speech. Here's an exercise to sharpen this skill. Write down 3 personal moments where you learned something important. They don't have to be dramatic. Maybe you overcame procrastination, faced rejection, or made an awkward mistake. Then practice telling each in under 2 minutes, ending with the lesson. These stories become tools you can use anytime you need to illustrate a point. I once coached a scientist who was preparing a lecture. His research was groundbreaking, but his delivery was dry. We worked on embedding stories, how he first discovered his passion as a child, the late nights of trial and error, the moment his experiment finally worked. His audience didn't just understand his science. They felt his journey. He went from being another lecturer to being unforgettable. Remember, a story is not a break from your speech. It is your speech, woven with meaning. When you master storytelling, your words stop being information and start becoming transformation. Chapter 8. The moment you step in front of an audience, people look at you. Some glance for a second, others stare, and a few avoid your eyes completely. But if you master eye contact, you create an invisible bridge of trust and connection that words alone cannot achieve. Eye contact is more than just looking at people. It's about making them feel seen, included, and valued. Without it, even the most powerful message can fall flat. Think about the last time someone gave you their full, undivided attention. Maybe they leaned in slightly, nodded as you spoke, and held your gaze with warmth. Didn't you feel respected, even important? Now imagine trying to tell a story to someone who keeps glancing at their phone, looking over your shoulder, or staring at the ground. You feel ignored, dismissed, almost invisible. That's the difference eye contact makes in communication. It turns a simple exchange into a human connection. On stage, eye contact is your strongest tool for creating intimacy in a room full of strangers. The tricky part, of course, is how to do it naturally. Many speakers either avoid it altogether, darting their eyes nervously across the floor or ceiling, or they overdo it, staring so intently that it feels uncomfortable. The art lies in balance. A good speaker moves their gaze like a lighthouse, steady, calm, and covering the whole room. You don't just look at one person and lock in forever, nor do you scatter your eyes so fast that no one feels truly acknowledged. Instead, you linger for a few seconds on one person, finish the thought, then gently move to another corner of the room. This creates the illusion that you are speaking to everyone, even though you are connecting one person at a time. The effect is powerful. When you look at someone directly as you speak, the rest of the audience feels that authenticity, too. They may not all be receiving your gaze at that moment, but they see that you are open and confident enough to connect. And when their turn comes, when your eyes finally meet theirs, they feel that sudden jolt of recognition. This message is for me. Of course, there are cultural nuances. In some cultures, prolonged eye contact is seen as a sign of respect and confidence. In others, it can be interpreted as rude or confrontational. A skillful speaker learns to read the room, adjusting intensity as needed. But across the world, the principle holds true. When your eyes wander without focus, so does your message. Eye contact also shapes your emotional energy. Looking into people's eyes can calm you down. Instead of facing a faceless, intimidating crowd, you're just talking to one person, then another, then another. It humanizes the audience, reminding you that they are not a monster waiting to judge you, but individuals wanting to connect. If you struggle with eye contact, here's a practical technique. Divide the room into sections. Focus on one person in each section for a short while, then rotate. Over the course of your speech, everyone feels included. Another trick is to connect during pauses. Instead of rushing through your words, pause, look at someone and let silence carry weight. This not only makes your speech stronger, but also deepens a sense of presence. The magic is subtle but real. Without saying a word, your eyes tell the audience, I see you. You matter. This is not just a performance. This is a conversation between us. Master this, and your body, voice, and emotions align with a new level of authenticity. People will remember not only what you said, but how you made them feel. And more often than not, they'll feel like you were speaking directly to them, even in a room of hundreds. Chapter 9. If the voice is your instrument and eye contact your bridge, then gestures are your paintbrush. They color your words, add dimension to your ideas, and make your message unforgettable. When done right, gestures can amplify your presence and make your speech feel alive. When done wrong or ignored altogether, they can drain your energy and leave you looking stiff, awkward, or insincere. Think for a moment about great speakers you've seen. Martin Luther King Jr., Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Barack Obama. What do they all share? A rhythm between words and movement. Their hands punctuate their sentences. Their arms open wide to invite. Their fingers point to emphasize. It's not random flailing. It's intentional storytelling through the body. Gestures matter because the human brain loves visual reinforcement. When you say, I have 3 points, and you hold up 3 fingers, people remember it better. When you talk about something vast and spread your arms wide, the audience feels the size. When you describe something tiny and pinch your fingers close together, the meaning sinks deeper. Your gestures give your words shape. But here's the catch. Gestures cannot be forced. If you plan every move like a robot, the audience will sense it. Stiff, rehearsed movements are worse than none at all. Authentic gestures grow naturally from emotion. When you genuinely care about what you're saying, your hands will want to move. The trick is not to suppress them, but to let them flow freely, within reason. A beginner's mistake is a pocket prison, keeping hands buried in pockets, gripping a lectern, or folding arms like a shield. This blocks expression and signals nervousness. On the other end of the spectrum is windmill mode, wild, uncontrolled movements that distract from your words. The sweet spot lies in gestures that feel intentional, open, and in sync with your message. One powerful technique is mirroring your own words. If you're telling a story about climbing a mountain, mimic the upward motion with your hand. If you're contrasting 2 ideas, show them with each palm facing up, as if weighing them. These small, visual cues give your audience mental hooks to remember your points. Gestures also affect how people perceive your confidence. Open palms communicate honesty and warmth. Pointing too aggressively can feel confrontational, but using a finger lightly to highlight a key idea can add emphasis. Holding your hand over your heart conveys sincerity. Each gesture whispers a message beyond your words. And don't forget about posture. It's a gesture in itself. Standing tall, shoulders back, feet firmly planted says, I'm grounded. I belong here. Slouching, shuffling, or swaying tells the opposite story. I wish I could disappear. Even before you say your first word, your posture sets the tone for how the audience will receive you. There's also rhythm. Great speakers don't just move randomly. They gesture in harmony with their phrasing. A hand sweeps outward as a sentence expands, then pauses as the point lands. Movement follows meaning, and meaning gains power from movement. It's almost musical. If you feel uncomfortable with gestures, practice by reading aloud in front of a mirror. Notice how your hands move naturally when you're engaged in the story. Or record yourself and watch where your movements look authentic versus stiff. You'll quickly learn to trust your instincts. Remember, your gestures don't need to be dramatic. Small but intentional movements are often more powerful than grand, theatrical ones. The goal isn't to perform, but to align your body with your words so that every part of you is communicating the same message. In the end, gestures are not just decoration. They are meaning and motion. When your hands, arms, and posture echo the emotions in your heart and the words from your lips, your audience doesn't just hear you, they feel you. And that is the mark of a confident speaker. Chapter 10. By now, you build a foundation with posture, breath gestures, and eye contact. Your words carry weight, but there's one more element that can make your speech truly captivating: vocal variety. This is a 6 technique, and it transforms a simple talk into an experience. Many new speakers make the same mistake. They speak in a monotone. Their voice rises and falls very little. Their tone stays flat, and their rhythm becomes predictable. Even if the content is brilliant, the audience's attention drifts. People tune out. A monotone voice signals disinterest, fatigue, or even insecurity. Vocal variety, on the other hand, engages your audience. It adds texture, emphasis, and emotion. It's about consciously changing pitch, pace, volume, and tone to match the message you're delivering. It's what makes a story exciting, a point memorable, and a speech feel alive. Pitch is the musical note of your speech. A slightly higher pitch can convey excitement or curiosity. A lower pitch signals authority and gravity. When you vary your pitch, your words carry emotional nuance that the audience can feel. Pace is your timing. Speaking too fast can make you seem anxious or rushed. Too slow, and you risk boring your listeners. Alternating speeds keeps the audience engaged. You might slow down for a crucial point, then pick up tempo for a story or an example. Rhythm draws listeners in, guiding them through your ideas. Volume is power. Don't confuse loud with effective. Strategic changes in volume. Speaking softly to draw listeners closer, then louder to emphasize a key message. Create dynamic contrast. Think of it like music. Crescendos build excitement. Diminuendos bring intimacy. Tone is emotion. A flat tone is like a black and white picture. Tone with warmth, curiosity, humor, or passion turns your words into color. The audience doesn't just hear you. They feel your mood, your conviction, and your authenticity. Here's a simple exercise to practice vocal variety. Take a short paragraph and read it aloud 3 different ways: seriously, excitedly, and empathetically. Record yourself. Listen for differences. Notice how changing pitch, pace, volume, or tone alters the perception of your message. The words are the same, but the experience is completely different. Another technique is intentional emphasis. Identify the key word or phrase in each sentence. Pause just before it. Speak it slightly louder or slower, then continue. This draws attention to what matters most. The human brain naturally notices variation, so these small adjustments make your speech more memorable. Even professional speakers rehearse this. Actors, politicians, and TED presenters all use vocal variety intentionally. They know that no matter how brilliant the content, delivery without nuance falls flat. And here's the good news. It doesn't require talent. It requires awareness and practice. Finally, Remember that vocal variety works in harmony with your body and gestures. A hand sweep, a confident stance, and a well-timed rise and pitch together make a point resonate. When voice, body, and emotion are aligned, you don't just speak, you command attention, master vocal variety, and suddenly your speech isn't just information. It's a performance of presence, emotion, and clarity. The audience listens, leans in, and remembers. And most importantly, you feel in control every step of the way. Chapter 11. By now, your body, breath, voice, gestures, and eye contact are under control. You can pause with intention, tell stories, and use vocal variety. But the secret ingredient that transforms a competent speaker into a magnetic one is emotional energy. This is a seventh technique, learning to harness your emotions rather than letting them hijack you. Emotions are not your enemy, they are your fuel. Fear, excitement, nervousness, or passion can either weaken your performance or amplify it. The difference lies in awareness and channeling. Most speakers try to suppress nerves or hide excitement, believing that calm neutrality is professional. But when used correctly, emotional energy makes your speech vivid, authentic, and compelling. Think back to the speeches that moved you. Chances are the speaker's emotion was palpable. You didn't just hear the words, you felt them, whether it was excitement, empathy, urgency, or inspiration. Their emotion created connection. Audiences respond to what they feel, not just what they hear. The first step is awareness. Notice how your body reacts to emotions. Heart rate increases, palm sweat, or your voice shakes when nervous. Instead of resisting, acknowledge it. I am nervous, and that's okay. This simple acknowledgement reduces tension. Next, channel that energy. Nervousness can be redirected into enthusiasm and engagement. For example, if your heart is racing, use adrenaline to add volume, pace, or gestural intensity. If your hands tremble, allow them to move intentionally, emphasizing your points. Fear becomes fuel, not a hindrance. Storytelling is the perfect vehicle for emotional energy. When you tell a story with personal stakes, your emotions naturally come through. The key is balance. Convey emotion without overwhelming the audience. Passion should invite them in, not push them away. Facial expressions are another tool. A smile communicates warmth. A slight frown conveys seriousness. Eyebrows, jaw tension, and subtle shifts in expression transmit your emotional state to your listeners. When combined with eye contact and gestures, your emotion resonates throughout the room. Breath plays a crucial role here too. Deep, intentional breaths help you regulate intensity. If excitement threatens to turn into rushing, a slow exhale brings focus. If nerves cause stiffness, grounding your body with a breath reconnects you with presence. Practice helps. Try giving a short speech about a topic you care deeply about. Focus on letting your emotion flow naturally into your voice and gestures. Record yourself. Notice what feels authentic and what feels exaggerated. Over time, you'll learn to dial your energy up or down, depending on the room and message. Emotional energy also feeds confidence. When you feel passion for your message, your presence becomes magnetic. The audience picks up on this, often unconsciously. They trust you, lean in, and remember what you say, not because of your slides, but because of the energy you radiate. Remember, emotion is not a flaw, it's a tool. Master it, and your speech moves from competent to unforgettable. Harness emotional energy, and every word you speak carries weight, authenticity, and life. Chapter 12. A confident speaker doesn't just walk on stage, they arrive. The eighth technique, is about mastering the opening of your speech. How you begin sets the tone for everything that follows. A weak, hesitant start can undo all the preparation you've done with posture, breath, voice, and gestures. A strong, deliberate opening grabs attention and establishes authority from the first word. Imagine walking into a room and immediately noticing someone who radiates presence. They stand tall, their gaze meets yours, their energy fills the space. You pay attention without thinking. That's the effect of a strong opening. The first 30 seconds are crucial. People are deciding whether to listen, trust, or even like you in that short window. There are several strategies to open effectively. Start with a story. A brief, compelling anecdote draws your audience in. Humans are wired for narratives, and a story immediately creates emotional engagement. Ask a thought-provoking question. Questions spark curiosity. Even rhetorical questions make listeners pause and think, pulling them into your speech mentally. Use a striking fact or statistic. A surprising number can wake up a room and establish credibility instantly. Open with emotion. Share a feeling or reaction that mirrors the audience's experience. Empathy connects more deeply than logic alone. Whichever method you choose, it must feel authentic. Trying to force a joke, dramatic story, or shocking fact that doesn't fit your personality will backfire. Your opening should reflect who you are and what your message represents. Preparation is key. Rehearse your opening until it feels natural. Practice aloud, standing as if in front of your audience. Pay attention to your breathing and voice. Your first words should flow from calm, controlled breath, and a grounded posture. Eye contact and gestures play a crucial role here too. As you begin, sweep your gaze across the room, making brief but deliberate contact with different sections of the audience. Use gestures that align with your message, nothing overdone, just enough to emphasize key points. Pausing strategically in your opening can also have impact. After a dramatic fact or powerful question, pause for a moment to let it sink in. Silence gives your audience time to process and primes them for what comes next. I remember coaching a young speaker who always stumbled in the first minute presentations. Her hands shook, her voice quivered, and she rushed through her introduction. We worked on her opening for days, selecting a short story, practicing pauses, and grounding her breath. The difference was dramatic. Not only did she start with confidence, but the rest of her speech flowed naturally. Her nervousness didn't disappear. It was channeled into energy. The key takeaway: the opening is your first impression, your opportunity to claim attention and trust. If you falter here, you start on the back foot. If you command the stage from the start, the audience leans in, ready for everything you have to offer. A confident speaker doesn't just deliver a message. They captivate from the very first word. Master your opening, and you begin every speech with power, presence, and purpose. Chapter 13. Even the most seasoned speakers feel it. That fluttering in the stomach, the dry throat, the racing heart. Nervousness is normal. But the difference between a confident speaker and a stumbling one lies in how it handled. The ninth technique is managing nervous energy and turning it into performance fuel. Fear before speaking often comes from one source: the mind imagining all the ways things could go wrong. What if I forget my lines? What if they laugh at me? What if I sound foolish? These thoughts trigger physical reactions: sweaty palms, quivering hands, shaky voice. Instead of suppressing this fear, we must acknowledge it and redirect it. One powerful method is reframing nerves as excitement. The physiological symptoms are nearly identical. Adrenaline spikes, heart rate increases, energy rises. Instead of saying to yourself, "I'm nervous," try, I'm excited to share this message. This simple shift changes your body's response. You still have energy, it just flows differently. Breathing techniques are also essential. Take a few slow, deep breaths before stepping on stage. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold before, exhale for 6. This calms the nervous system, lowers tension, and centers your mind. Combine this with grounding. Plant your feet firmly. Feel your weight evenly distributed, and imagine roots connecting you to the floor. Physical grounding reinforces mental stability. Preparation is another antidote to fear. Knowing your material inside and out builds a safety net. Practice until your words flow naturally, so your mind can focus on delivery instead of retrieval. But don't aim for perfection. Flexibility is key. Mistakes happen, and a confident speaker adjusts seamlessly without letting it unravel them. Visualization is a powerful tool. Close your eyes and imagine yourself delivering the speech flawlessly. Picture the audience engaged, nodding, smiling. Feel the confidence in your posture, the resonance in your voice, and the flow of your gestures. By rehearsing success in your mind, you condition yourself to act with confidence in reality. Even during the speech, small techniques help. Pauses allow you to breathe and collect thoughts. Eye contact anchors you. Gestures release tension. If you stumble, a brief pause or light humor can reset the room and your energy. Nervousness becomes part of your performance rather than a disruption. I once coached a speaker terrified of presenting to executives. He had brilliant ideas but would freeze during the opening lines. We worked on breathing, reframing, and visualization. On the day of his speech, he felt a familiar nervous flutter, but he turned it into controlled energy. He delivered with clarity, authority, and even warmth. The executives were captivated, unaware of the internal struggle he had mastered. Remember, nervousness is not a flaw. It's energy waiting to be directed. A confident speaker doesn't eliminate fear. They use it. The heart may race, but the message soars. When you embrace nervousness as fuel, you stop fighting your body and start collaborating with it. That shift alone can transform a shaky speech into one that feels compelling, alive, and authentic. Chapter 14. Even with perfect posture, a powerful voice, dynamic gestures, and controlled emotions, a speaker cannot succeed without reading the audience. This is a 10 technique. Learning to gauge reactions and adapt your delivery in real time. Confident speakers are not just talking. They're listening with their eyes, ears, and intuition. An audience communicates constantly. Subtle cues, a nod, a yawn, a frown, shifting in their seat, tell you how your message is landing. A confident speaker notices these signals and adjusts without missing a beat. Ignoring the audience is a common mistake. You may deliver your content flawlessly, but if no one is connecting with it, your effort falls flat. Start with eye contact. Look for engagement. Are people leaning forward or glancing at their phones? These visual signals indicate interest or distraction. Listen to their verbal responses, even brief murmurs or laughter. Both are feedback. Adaptation is a skill. If you notice your audience is losing focus, vary your pace or volume. Insert a story, a question, or a pause to recapture attention. If a point resonates and people lean in, emphasize it, repeat it, or expand on it. A rigid script is less effective than a responsive speaker. Another key is empathy. Put yourself in the audience's shoes. Ask what they care about. What is relevant to them? What do they already know? Tailor examples, tone, and emotion accordingly. The more attuned you are, the stronger your connection. Physical space also matters. In smaller rooms, walking closer to listeners creates intimacy. In larger settings, Sweeping gestures and vocal projection ensure your energy reaches the back rows. Your awareness of space reinforces your presence. I remember coaching a teacher who delivered a lecture with immense knowledge but limited connection. Students appeared distracted. We worked on reading microsignals, shifting eyes, posture, and subtle expressions. She began adjusting on the spot, slowing down when they seemed confused, emphasizing points that drew nods, asking rhetorical questions when attention waned. The classroom transformed. Students became engaged, curious, and responsive. Feedback is also a form of learning. After each presentation, reflect. Which cues did you notice? Which did you miss? How did your adjustments affect the audience's energy? Over time, this develops into intuition, the ability to sense and respond without conscious thought. Remember, a confident speaker is not performing for an empty room. They are conversing with a living audience. Engagement is a two-way street. When you read the room, you gain influence, maintain attention, and create impact. The essence of this technique is flexibility. Confidence isn't rigidity, it's adaptability. By staying alert, empathetic, and responsive, you ensure every speech resonates with the people listening, not just with the script you memorized. Chapter 15. Questions are more than a tool for engagement. They are a mechanism for influence. The 11th technique is about using questions strategically to involve, provoke thought, and guide your audience. A well-placed question can transform passive listeners into active participants, keeping attention high and creating a sense of collaboration. Most speakers underestimate questions. They either avoid them altogether, fearing awkward pauses or unexpected answers, or they ask them without intention, creating confusion rather than curiosity. Confident speakers, however, use questions deliberately, sometimes rhetorical, sometimes direct, to shape the audience's experience. Rhetorical questions are subtle yet powerful. Asking, "Have you ever faced a moment where fear held you back?" invites reflection without requiring a response. The audience mentally participates, making the content personally relevant. This mental engagement improves retention and makes your speech memorable. Direct questions also work, especially in interactive settings. Asking for a show of hands, a nod, or even verbal responses creates energy and breaks the monotony of a one-sided presentation. But the key is timing. Questions should support the message, not derail it. Pausing after a question is crucial. Silence is your ally here. When you ask a question, give the audience a few seconds to think. Resist the urge to fill the space with your own words. This pause empowers the audience, signals respect for your input, and demonstrates your confidence. Questions also serve another purpose. They subtly direct attention. By posing a question, you guide the audience's thought process. For instance, asking, "What would it feel like if you mastered this skill?" primes them to consider the benefits before you provide the answer. You lead without lecturing. I once coached a young executive preparing for a board presentation. He was concerned that the audience would tune out during a long, data-heavy segment. We integrated a few carefully crafted questions, pausing to let each sink in. The effect was immediate. The room became alert, engaged, and responsive. He reported later that the questions not only kept attention, but also made his insights more persuasive. There's a subtle psychological principle at play. People naturally seek answers. When you ask a question, the audience mentally leans in, searching for the resolution. This creates anticipation and involvement, even before you deliver the next point. Another technique is using reflective questions for impact. Pause, ask a question, and let it linger. Your audience will wrestle with internally. connecting emotionally with your content. It's a method that strengthens retention and subtly positions you as a guide rather than a lecturer. Remember, questions are bridges, not traps. They link your message to the audience's mind, keeping them engaged, thinking, and invested. Master the strategic use of questions, and your speeches move from passive listening to active participation. When wielded with intention, questions become a tool of influence, attention, and connection, a hallmark of every confident speaker. Chapter 16. We've touched on stories before, but this technique takes storytelling to a higher level. The 12th technique is about using stories not just to entertain, but to persuade and inspire action. A confident speaker doesn't just tell stories. They craft narratives that move hearts and minds toward a purpose. Stories have a unique power because humans are wired to remember them. Facts inform, but stories transform. They trigger emotions, create mental imagery, and make abstract ideas concrete. A well-told story can influence beliefs, shape attitudes, and motivate behavior far more effectively than raw data alone. To craft persuasive stories, begin with a clear goal. What do you want the audience to think, feel, or do after your story? Every element, the characters, conflict, setting, and resolution, should support that goal. Random anecdotes, no matter how entertaining, dilute your message. Emotional resonance is crucial. A story that touches fear, hope, curiosity, or joy is far more memorable than one devoid of feeling. For example, instead of stating, "Teamwork improves productivity," you could tell a story about a project that almost failed until collaboration saved the day. Listeners don't just understand the concept, they feel it. The structure matters. Every persuasive story follows a simple arc: situation, challenge, and resolution. Introduce relatable characters and circumstances. Present a conflict or obstacle, and then resolve it with a lesson or insight you want to impart. Keep it concise. Too many details can overwhelm or distract. Focus on the elements that support your purpose. Timing and delivery enhance impact. Pauses before the climax build suspense. Vocal emphasis highlights critical moments. Gestures and facial expressions reinforce emotions. A confident speaker uses their whole presence to bring the story to life. Another secret: make it personal whenever possible. Personal experiences carry authenticity. The audience senses when a story is genuine versus fabricated. Vulnerability can strengthen persuasion because it demonstrates honesty and relatability. I once worked with a sales executive who struggled to motivate his team. Facts and numbers weren't inspiring action. We developed short, real-life stories about clients and challenges the team had overcome. The narratives illustrated lessons, celebrated victories, and made strategies tangible. Engagement soared. The team didn't just understand the goals, they felt connected to them. Finally, remember that stories are tools for influence, not manipulation. Your intent should always be to educate, inspire, or motivate, not deceive. A persuasive story respects the audience's intelligence while engaging their emotions. Mastering storytelling and persuasion turns your speech from information into experience. It transforms listeners from passive recipients into active participants in your message, making your influence enduring and your presence unforgettable. Chapter 17. Throughout this book, we've explored the 3 pillars of confident speaking: body, voice, and emotions. We've examined 17 techniques: posture, breath control, gestures, pauses, vocal variety, storytelling, emotional energy, audience awareness, and more. Each one builds on the other, creating a foundation that transforms not just how you speak, but how you are perceived. Confidence is not a talent reserved for a select few. It is a skill cultivated intentionally through practice, awareness, and self-reflection. Every speaker, whether standing before 10 people in a meeting or 1,000 in an auditorium, can harness these techniques to command attention, inspire trust, and leave a lasting impact. The journey begins with self-awareness. Observe how you move, how you speak, and how you feel when you step in front of others. Then experiment. Try different gestures, pause intentionally, modulate your voice, connect with the audience. Learn from each attempt, refine and grow. Mistakes are not failures. They are lessons on the path to mastery. Remember, confident speaking is about alignment. When your body, voice, and emotions work together, authenticity shines through. The audience doesn't just hear words. They feel presence. They sense clarity, conviction, and connection. And it is in that alignment that influence is born. Finally, embrace the mindset of a lifelong learner. Every speech, presentation, or conversation is an opportunity to practice, adapt, and evolve. The techniques in this book are tools, but mastery comes from experience and reflection. As you move forward, carry this principle. Confidence is cultivated, not assumed. With deliberate practice, awareness, and courage, you can step into any room, command attention, and speak with authority, clarity, and authenticity. The journey to becoming a confident speaker is ongoing, but every step you take brings you closer to the presence, power, and influence that will define your voice. Your voice matters. Use it boldly. Speak confidently. Inspire change.